Veterans, do you know what VA's direct service connection is? In today's video, I am going to break down the three major components as it pertains to direct service connection. So when you decide to file a claim this way, you understand exactly what it means and what evidence you need. Make sure you stick around. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dwayne. I got a video for that Kimball, United States Army veteran and retired VA rating specialist. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and notification button. So today's video, direct service connection. What are the three major components? What are some examples? I'm going to break down all of this in today's video. But before I get into that, I want to go over what are the different ways of VA service connection. A lot of veterans miss this when they are starting the VA claims process. So, one, you have pre-service aggravation. What that means is before you entered your military service, you had a condition and your military service aggravated it. The best way to confirm this is look on your entrance exam. When you went to MEPS, more than likely you had something like moderate pes planus, flat feet. It was on mine, okay? But sometimes it's not on there. You would have a diagnosis, all right? So that would fall under pre-service aggravation. The second one, direct service connection. That's the one we're going to be talking about today. You need three elements: current diagnosis, a link in service, and a nexus, all right? The third one, secondary service connection. What do you need? A diagnosis. What else do you need? The primary condition has to be service connection. Has to be service connected. And then you need a nexus that's going to link the two, all right? Now, this one may be a little bit controversial, may have some ready to say, oh, this is not a way of service connection, but it's an increase. Now, I've stated in some previous videos, this is the one way that I saw veterans get reduced. Increase. You're already service connected and you're telling the VA, hey, this condition has gotten worse. And so the main thing that gets veterans in trouble when it comes to increase is two things. One, they don't verify how long they've been service connected for that condition in the percentage, okay? So if you have migraines at 30%, if the migraines has been in effect less than 5 years and you're going for a CMP exam and it shows improvement, proposal to reduce. But if it's been in effect longer than 5 years and you go to that CMP exam and it shows improvement, they can't reduce you. They need 2 CMP exams to show improvement before they can do a proposal to reduce. I know I confuse you. Make sure you check out my video on adverse action. I'm breaking it all down in that video, okay? Then you have presumptive conditions. 1 year, 3 year, 7 year, Gulf War, Vietnam, to include the PACT Act for both of those, and Camp Lejeune contaminated water. There's another one that I've only talked about once. I've only done one video, and those are 1151 claims. I am not going to get into those because it is a lot of information. But if you have my book, VA Claims Success, go to page 13 and you can see how I break some of these different ways down as they pertain to different conditions that a veteran would be claiming. But today's video, we're going to talk about direct service connection. As a former VA rater, I've seen, I would say maybe 65, 75% of the claims I rated, veterans were claiming their conditions as direct service connection. So you know I got some slides for you. Let's go ahead and get into it. Slide number 1. Here in slide number 1, take you back to the M21-1. Now, When I was going through the M21-1 doing research, I didn't copy the entire M21 reference, okay? So it says, overview of direct service connection. Direct service connection means that a particular disease or injury was incurred in service. That's keep people in service, not after service at a VA hospital. That's not direct service connection. Now, because you have went to a VA medical center, obtained a diagnosis for disease or injury that incurred in service, yes. But if you do that, keep in mind, that does not mean automatic service connection, okay? This is accomplished by affirmatively showing inception during service. During service, they're saying it again. There are three components to providing direct service connection. A current disability. You need a current diagnosis, people. Just go ahead and get the current diagnosis. Now, when I first started rating, they didn't require, even though direct service connection was around, we could still request a CMP exam if the veteran had symptoms of a diagnosis that they were claiming, okay? And then we would let the CMP examiner say, do they have a diagnosis or not? Take that out of the hands of the VA employee and the third-party CMP examiner. How do you do it? You go and get the diagnosis yourself, okay? Now, an event, injury, or disease in service, to include a diagnosis or complaint, treatment, okay? So if you have a copy of your medical records from active duty, go through there. Did you have right knee pain, left shoulder pain, lower back pain, migraines, PTSD treatment, peripheral neuropathy of the lower extremities, or whatever it is? Go through there first, and you add to that list. So if you go to page 13, and you look at my diagram in my book, VA Claim Success, on the right-hand side, I have a list of conditions. That's what you're going to do. You're going to get those medical records from active duty. You're going to go through. You're going to say, okay, what can I claim pre-service aggravation? What can I claim direct service connection? What can I claim secondary service connection? If you're claiming an increase in anything, what am I already service connected for that I feel has gotten worse? Also, do I meet any of the criteria for presumptive conditions? All right. So you want to make sure you're looking at that medical evidence from service, okay? And you build your game plan around that. Number 3, a link or nexus. Now, I did a previous video where I was talking about the essentials of a Nexus statement. So you don't have to go out and pay for a private DBQ or Nexus. That is totally up to you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to spend your money and do that. It would be up to you. Now, what I did after the Atlanta Region Office lied and denied my claim for pre-service aggravation for moderate pest planus and said it wasn't in my records, and then when I requested the records, it was in there multiple times, I was like, okay. I still went to the CMP exam because I claimed it later, and that examiner flat out lied. DBQs came out, and I was like, you know what? I'll have my podiatrist complete it because I do not trust the VA CMP examiners. Now, that's what I did. You're going to have to stand on business on what you want to do, okay? Now, I also have highlighted in red there, chronicity and continuity, okay? I could probably count maybe 1 or 2 times, if that, where I've used that in a denial decision. I just got to the point, I was like, you know what? I'm not using it. A lot of raters use that when you've been out of service for several years. And even though you have a current diagnosis, they see, oh, there's no continued treatment. Oh, I'm not going to even request a CMP exam. I'm just going to deny it based on chronicity and continuity. Like I said, as I can recall, maybe 1 or 2 times at the most. I didn't like that because, they talked about a link in service. It doesn't say you had to be seen 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. I just needed to see that injury or disease or complaint or an event in service at least one time. That was it. And I was granting you a CMP exam. And then it was up to the doctor, you go to the CMP exam and you tell the doctor, hey, this is what happened. And they give a positive or negative opinion. Okay? So keep that in mind if, they deny you for a condition you claim that is clearly documented in service for chronicity and continuity, because here's why. In service, we're always trained to suck it up. When you get out, you still have that mindset. Maybe you have been sucking it up all these years. I did the same thing when I went to the CMP exam. I explained that to the examiner. So if I was to do it again, start documenting that treatment. Let's keep going. Slide number 2. Here in slide number 2, another M21-1, satisfying the current disability requirement for service connection. That's what SC stands for. Evidence of a current disability is required as one of the components of establishing service connection. So not only do you need to go out and get a diagnosis, continue treatment. I did a video back in December where I was talking about, the changes. If they implemented the changes in April of this year, 2025, which they hadn't, as it pertains to sleep apnea, the general rating criteria for mental conditions, and removing the diagnostic code and criteria for tinnitus. Start your paper trail. If you're trying to get an increase in mental health or service connection for PTSD or whatever, once a week, treatment. You're building that paper trail. Don't allow them to say, oh, there's no chronicity or anything like that. Build the paper trail, okay? Now, this in particular M21-1, it gave an example, okay? And I'm going to read this one in its entirety. A veteran is diagnosed with eczema regularly throughout service and was treated with topical medications, okay, by dermatologists on multiple occasions. Symptoms waxed and waned. So let me talk about waxed and waned. Waxed and waned means a fluctuating or intermediate course of a disease condition, okay? So basically describes a symptoms, diseases, or condition. I'm trying to think of how did the VA tell us that? That fluctuates in severity over time with periods of increased intensity, waxing, followed by periods of decrease. So think about PFB, the skin condition, shaving bumps and stuff, okay? Waxing and waning, as is typical with eczema based on seasonal changes. Service treatment records, STRs, from June 12th show eczema. A benefits delivery discharge, BDD claims, active duty individuals. It's submitted, so they submitted this claim while they were on active duty, and a VA pre-discharge examination from August 2017 determines that no pathology exists to render a diagnosis of a skin disorder, okay? The in-service records clearly show a long-standing diagnosis of eczema, which was present, all right, with the claim. Service connection should be granted. But if you go back and look, August 2012 determines that no pathology exists to render a diagnosis of a skin disorder. So this particular veteran, what did they do? They went to sick call. Complained, it was waxing and waning, coming and going, okay? So obviously they did this on active duty. No nexus is needed. VA can grant the benefit, okay? Let's keep going. Slide number 3. Here in slide number 3, now I'm only going to read the first 2 sentences of this example, but I'm going to leave it up long enough so you can read it or make sure you pause it, okay? And it's very important. Now, these, I know they're boring, but this is where you win. When they give me some examples, this is where you win. States a veteran claimed service connection for sinusitis in March 2008 prior to military discharge in July 2008, okay? So what is that? BDD claim, right? During service, the veteran was treated variably for upper respiratory infections, ear infections, deviated septum due to an in-service injury. Deviated septum due to an in-service injury, chronic nasal congestion, and sinus problems. On examination, the veteran reported pain and headache in the sinus area and incapacitating flare-ups 2 to 3 times a year. The examiner provided no diagnosis. What? It indicated no sinusitis was shown on exam. The examiner indicated there was no visual postnasal drainage of significant hypertrophy or posterior, I'm not going to try to pronounce that those last 2 words, tissue. Okay, now let's just skip down to the bottom. Service connection for sinusitis should be denied. Now, this veteran here, what did they do wrong? You're probably saying, Dwayne, they didn't do anything wrong. They did. If they knew they were going to claim sinusitis, you get that diagnosis. You get that diagnosis and ask that examiner to bag up how they came to that conclusion that you had that diagnosis for sinusitis. So just think about it. You've been out of service a while. What are you going to do? You maybe had some symptoms, but you didn't have a diagnosis in service. You had an event in service. So these are events. You ask that examiner, those events in service, do they equal a diagnosis of sinusitis that I have right now? Yes, now you have a current diagnosis, and ask that examiner to explain, just like this one did, okay, to say that the veteran didn't have a diagnosis of sinusitis. So we covered the 3 components of direct service connection. What did you take away from this? What you should have taken away from it, if you didn't: current diagnosis, documentation, continued treatment. Let me tell you something. These VA employees, they not playing, okay? They are not playing. The way you beat them at their own game, you use these regulations on their website to your advantage. Now, it's no trick, okay? They're telling you this is what you need. Go get it, okay? So if they say, hey, you're going to get service connection, but you need to show up with a navy blue shirt. Why would you show up with a red shirt? Get exactly what they need. Do not leave it up to the C&P examiner to give you a diagnosis. You get the diagnosis. But guess what? Direct service connection starts with a current diagnosis. If you're claiming it due to service, make sure you have those service treatment records showing what? An event, an injury, treatment, or complaint, or even a diagnosis during active duty. Now, if you're still sticking around to this point, and you're like, man, I love these VA claim nuggets that Dwayne be dropping, go ahead and put a fire emoji in the comment section. So let me give you a bonus. There are some conditions that do not need to be documented in service. PTSD, only if you're claiming it due to fear of hostile military terrorist activity for serving in Southwest Asia. Tinnitus is another one. But you have to be able to explain and reasonably articulate how you were exposed to acoustic trauma. Guess what? I got a video on that, all right? Any joint, let's say ankle, knee, back, neck, shoulders, elbows, and wrists, due to being awarded the parachute badge. Don't worry about it. I have a video on that as well, okay? But these all fall under direct service connection. What is the main component out of the 3, just in my opinion, is that diagnosis. Do not give them the opportunity to say you do not have a diagnosis. With that being said, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and as always, share this video with your fellow veterans. Thank you.